Hello, my friends. All right, it's Jill Osborne from the IC Network, and bear with me here. I got to move stuff around. You know what? Let me do it this way. That might be a little bit easier. Okay. Hello, my friends. It's Jill Osborne from the Interstitial Cystitis Network. It is Sunday. Hold on, I got to fix this a little bit. Okay. It is Sunday, April 27th, 2025, and I'm an hour early on on YouTube. And the reason why is we're going to try something new. I normally, for years, streamed with two separate internets. I had Comcast and I had AT&T. Comcast was the most expensive. It was almost $300 a month, and it was down half of the time. And I just was like, I am not going to pay them all this money for such poor service. That my Comcast was less reliable than my simple AT&T DSL, and I don't have access to fiber. So I'm now stuck in the sense that am I going to do 2 meetings a week? Am I going to do a separate meeting on YouTube and a separate meeting on Facebook? And I want to start meetings on Instagram. But today, just for today, and I honestly, I don't think we're going to have a lot of people because you don't know I'm starting early, and then I'm going to switch over. But I want to share what I am working on right now because I need your help. Hello? Okay, I see we have 3 watchers. Hi, you guys. I'm way early. I know. And I just want to say again to people on YouTube, we did have a meeting last weekend. I have it was not live on YouTube because Comcast was terrible. And honestly, I was having a terrible day and I was crying all day because I was facing a lot of anniversaries of being diagnosed with cancer and my parents' death. And I just was not in a good frame of mind last week. So for any of you watching who were over on Facebook while I was crying my eyes out in the first half hour, thank you for your support. I'm definitely better now, but we all need a little bit of help. Okay, so I am really excited. I'm really excited by the work that I'm doing right now because I was the first person to ever do a flare management guide, and I did it 20 years ago. And I've updated it periodically, but it's been a while. And now I'm expanding it massively. And I love what I'm doing. I love it. I really think this is going to help a lot of people who are struggling with pelvic pain and bladder pain and flares. And what makes us different from anything else is we're going way beyond a bladder wall flare and a pelvic floor flare. You know, and kind of my rationale and my motivation for this is we want you to live a normal life. We want you to be comfortable with your life. We want you to be able to go do the things that you need to do. The problem with flares is they stop you. The problem with a flare is that wedding that you want to go to, that Christmas party that you want to go to, that movie you want to go to, that dinner with friends you want to go to often become impossible. And the other really crazy part of this is it's so freaking unpredictable. Like literally you wake up in the morning, you're good, get a phone call, hey, you want to go to the movies? Yeah, I feel good. 2 hours later, bam, you're down. And you've got to call that friend and say, I'm so sorry, I can't go, I'm flaring. So my goal here is to try to give you context. My goal here is to try to help you understand what's causing that flare, how to treat that flare, but more importantly, how to prevent that flare. Okay, so I just want to go through the types of flares that we have, along with some basic rescue plans. Now, the other thing, guys, is when I look at the statistics on YouTube, Really, it's only the first 45 minutes, 46 minutes of a meeting that most people watch. That's why I'm going to keep this a little bit short. We're going to stop at 1 and we're going to switch over to Facebook. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask the questions. It's fine. But I'm early and I don't expect a lot of people here today. I think you're going to watch it, but I don't expect you here for the live meeting. Okay. All right. So, flares. The first type of flare is called a bladder wall flare. So, patients who have Hunner's lesions, patients with bladder wall subtypes are going to be, hi, Gay. Hi, Star. Star said, yeah, exactly, 100%. I was going to go out with some friends this evening, and I can't because they flared up. Exactly. The most annoying part of this at all. Okay, so a bladder wall flare. Bladder wall flares are definitely one of the most common, if not the most common flare. The people who are going to be prone to a bladder wall flare are going to be patients with Hunner's lesions or bladder wall phenotypes, such as estrogen atrophy, genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or chemocystitis. But even patients who have pelvic floor dysfunction are going to be more prone to having bladder wall sensitivity. Now, for the pelvic floor patient, the reason why the bladder is sensitive is because you're in a state of ischemia. Your muscles are so tight, they've restricted blood supply to the bladder, and that's actually hurt your bladder. But once you do the physical therapy and we get blood supply restored, then there's a very, very good chance that your bladder wall will feel much better. And you'll be able to go back to eating those foods and drinking those foods that you want to enjoy. That's very different from somebody with Hunner's lesions. Somebody with Hunner's lesions has big bloody wounds on their bladder. They're going to be extremely prone to a bladder wall flare. Somebody with estrogen atrophy, patients who have a thinner gag layer, who don't have that nice thick coating of mucus that normally protects their bladder wall, they're going to be more prone to a bladder wall flare. So what are the triggers for a bladder wall flare? Number one, diet. Foods high in acid, alcohol, caffeine. We've talked about this before. This should come as no surprise. You just have to understand that if you're cheating even once a week, you're preventing your bladder from healing. That's why we want you to be on the diet for like 3 to 6 months. Really give your bladder an opportunity to heal. One of the best ways to think about this as you're making decisions is, don't think of this as a disease robbing you of something you love, because when you're in that state of mind, you're like, I'm not going to let it do that. I'm going to have my cup of coffee anyway. But if you think of this instead as, oh, wait a second, I have a big old wound in my bladder. Would I put acid on a wound? Would I put coffee on a wound? The answer, of course, is no. Why would I do that? My job is to help this wound heal. And so it's very, very important that you focus on creating an environment that will help your bladder heal. So what are our triggers again? Diet, vitamins, and supplements. I was working with somebody last week who was doing a lot of a Centrum product and had been doing it for years and had been suffering with bladder pain for years. And they were clearly an estrogen atrophy patient. They just didn't know that multivitamins that are high in vitamin C have the potential of really irritating. That's why we have a low acid multivitamin in the IC Network shop called Bladder Smart that works for a lot of people, myself included. Some patients are going to have a hormone flare. And some patients are going to flare when they are exposed to various chemicals or medications. A good example of a medication that can trigger a bladder wall flare is going to be chemotherapy, or it's going to be a very, very strong antibiotic like Augmentin. So with a bladder wall flare, in the first 30 minutes, you need to rest, because we have to make sure that your anxiety doesn't kick up and start amplifying the pain. And we've got to calm those muscles down, because we don't want your muscles to start getting involved and making that flare worse. We want to do some heat. Proactively grab a heating pad, put a heating pad over your belly, your lower belly. Again, our goal is to try to just calm everything down. And some patients turn to cold. They really like cold instead. We'll talk about that later. Okay. If 30 minutes later, your flare is not showing any signs of improving, goal number one, dilute your urine. Drink some water. Got to flush those irritants out of your bladder. Number two, we want to reduce urine levels, acid levels. We want to alkalinize your urine. So this is when you want to take 1 or 2 pre-leaves or suck on a Tums. That's the best thing we can do to try to reduce the acid level. One of my worst flare, actually probably my single worst bladder wall flare, was when I went to the movies to see an old Harrison Ford movie with my boyfriend at the time, Todd. And I ordered a Sprite, and it was a fountain Sprite. It was not in a can, and that was so acidic. 30 minutes later, I was running to the bathroom, and then I was running to the bathroom every 15 minutes. When the movie was over, I just drove home sobbing. My bladder was screaming in pain. So we want to, if I had had some water, if I had had some pre-leaf, I would have been able to prevent that flare from happening. And how do we calm that bladder wall down? One of the very first things we can do is some chamomile herbal tea and some peppermint herbal tea. Okay. At an hour, this is where we want to start something like azo bladder pain relief tablets or pyridium that will numb the bladder wall. This is where you can throw in some ibuprofen, some Tylenol, maybe some PEA, some Peora, palmitoyl ethanolamide. We know can dramatically reduce IC pain, especially if it's used over time. It's a progressive improvement in pain care. If you're feeling bladder spasms, your doctor can sometimes give you an antispasmodic. This is where aloe can be the most helpful because aloe is very soothing to the bladder wall. And you can throw in some CBD, either from hemp or some medical marijuana. At 2 to 4 hours after that flare begins, let's focus on really soothing foods. It's not the time to eat barbecue, not the time to do hot chocolate. This is the time to do chamomile tea, rice, potatoes, chicken, vanilla ice cream, things like that that are very mild and gentle. And if necessary, we can start throwing in a little bit of pain medicine if your doctor has made that available to you. 24 hours after that flare began, if you're still struggling, you can do some rescue installations. Ask your doctor if you can come in for a quick rescue installation. If you're having persisting flares, we want to make sure that if you have Hunner's lesions are treated. We want to make sure your pelvic floor is being treated. Good pelvic floor assessment and therapy might be helpful. And then this is where there are some traditional medications that can help reduce some of these symptoms, like Mirbitric or Detrol or Ditropan, to help with frequency urgency. Okay. With a bladder wall flare, you got to write it out. You got to write it out. You just do. And hopefully you're not drinking a cup of coffee every day, which is going to make that flare last for as long as you're drinking that coffee. All right. The next type of flare we have is a pelvic floor flare. Given the fact that 85% of IC patients have tight, hypertonic pelvic floor muscles, we now know that when those muscles get triggered, they can cause frequency, urgency, pressure, pain. You absolutely believe it's your bladder, but your culture comes back negative. But you know what? That flare is actually coming from really, really tight pelvic floor muscles. My pelvic floor muscles right now are not particularly happy with me, which is why I did my internal work today. So what will cause a pelvic floor flare? Number one, falling, stumbling. Anytime you jar your pelvis, anytime you fall on your tailbone, that's going to trigger those muscles. We know that there are a lot of, hi, Ann. Yes, Ann. I started early on YouTube because I'm going to switch over to Facebook at 1. And I explained it when I started, so you can come back and watch the video. And we're just experimenting here. And I didn't tell anybody, I'm just experimenting. Okay. So getting back to the pelvic floor flare. So what's going to trigger a pelvic floor flare? Aside from falling, sports injuries, weightlifting. We're getting so many weightlifting stories now of patients who are hurting their muscles from weightlifting, spinning, playing football, gymnastics, ice skating, or sports that impact the pelvic floor. Even ballet can trigger abnormal pelvic floor tension. Sitting for long periods of time. If you're sitting for long periods of time, you're compressing muscles. If you're traveling by car, bus, or plane, that can trigger a flare. Sex can trigger a flare. And of course, stress can trigger a pelvic floor flare, because when you're under stress, you tighten muscles. That's called the fight or flight response. You have no control over that. That's involuntary. Your pelvic floor muscle locks down and gets very, very tight. Okay, so let's just say you had sex and now it's 5 hours later, 6 hours later, and you're going, oh my God, what do I do? This is not fun. What do I do? Okay, so concept number one is movement. If you could just take a little walk, do a little bit of gentle exercise, that can help reduce accumulated stress and improve your circulation. Try walking around your house, your garden, or if you can, out in your neighborhood, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Just get up and move. Remember, the human body is not designed to sit. The human body is designed to move. We got to get that blood flowing. Number two, heat. Heat relaxes muscles. So after you've taken that walk, come on back, grab a heating pad, sit in your recliner, throw some heat on that pelvic floor. The next thing that I have in our new flare guide that we've never had before is I have the stretches you can do to reduce muscle tension. And so you can stand and do the mountain pose. Oh man, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate it well. I cannot demonstrate it while I'm sitting here. Oh, what could I do? Oh, I should have printed this out and I could show it to you. Oh, I know how to do it. Hold on. I know exactly how to do it. Hold on one sec. So again, if we are trying to relax tight muscles, then we can do some stretches that will help that. All right, so I know exactly how I can do this for you because I have my handy dandy iPad right here. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. The first thing is the mountain pose. This is just about deep breathing. As you breathe in, your lower belly expands. That actually drops and relaxes your pelvic floor. The second thing you can do is happy baby. That's absolutely one of my favorites. Laying on your back, get your feet up, get your knees up to your chest. With your hands, grab your toes. And just breathe and relax. Breathe deeply. And let's try to drop and relax these pelvic floor muscles. This is the cobbler pose. So it's like sitting Indian style, but you've got your feet together. And remember, you're going to be able to get this guide, so I'm not going to. Actually, this is from we have a free download page on the IC network where you can actually print this out if you go to our free download area. You want to do the prayer pose. You want to put the pelvic floor exactly where it needs to be. Stick it in the prayer pose. A forward bend. This is great for stretching out the glutes. Lay on your back, bring your knees up slightly, put one foot over another knee, pull it back towards your chest. One of my favorites. Here's another great way of getting your pelvic floor relaxed. The cobra pose, yet another great way of getting your pelvic floor relaxed. Works on your core too. Okay, so in the first 30, 60 minutes after that pelvic floor flare begins, do some stretching, my friends. I meant to do some this morning and I didn't have time. Okay, if after you stretch your muscles are still not better, this is the time to do some guided relaxation. And because we have to physically, firmly, assertively tell our body to relax the you know what up. And on the IC Network website, in our self help section, I've got 4 here. So this is our self-help, our guided relaxation stay page. All right, hold on. Where did it go? There you go. Free guided imagery audio for IC prostatitis and pelvic pain. And these are on SoundCloud. So when you feel that pelvic floor flare begin, and it's not working with stretches, grab one of these. Free, my friends, free. You can do some muscle relaxants. If your doctor is giving you muscle relaxants like a Flexeril, Baclofen, that's a great time. You want to catch that flare early, 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 my friends. You don't want it to get out of control. This is where something like a vaginal Valium suppository can be remarkably helpful, or a CBD suppository. Fairwinds Cannabis, for example, has 2 separate suppositories with CBD, one for feminine health and one's called Rectify, that actually was mentioned at the American Urology Association course for IC a couple of years ago. So CBD is an option. And of course, you can do some self-massage with a wand, which is what I did a couple of hours ago. At 24 hours or longer with this flare, it's time for some physical therapy. You cannot, I mean, the challenge here is that, number one, physical therapy is expensive. It might not be covered by your insurance, but if you can go just once and literally just have a proper pelvic floor assessment, you walk out of that meeting or that appointment with the name of the muscle that's the problem, you can then come on back to YouTube and watch YouTube videos from physical therapists on how to relax that specific muscle. And I can see here on YouTube we're having issues, like we continue to have issues with streaming. So bear with me, my friends. Okay, so here's something I've never done before. I am doing what we call a nervous system dysregulation flare, a stress flare. Almost every patient has experienced or is vulnerable to a stress-induced flare. When we are under intense or constant stress, our body prepares itself to fight, flee, or freeze. This has kept humanity alive for thousands of years, especially when we feared a saber-toothed tiger walking by. But today, our days are filled with different but equally powerful types of stress. From financial insecurity to social media, which is relentlessly keeping us angry to keep us engaged, the stress triggers a physical response, such as increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, and tighter muscles. And yes, that means during periods of intense stress, pelvic floor muscles get tighter and nerves get more sensitive and painful. I didn't understand that persistent anxiety or fight or flight also makes the central nervous system more sensitive. It actually amplifies pain throughout the entire body and drives the other painful conditions that many patients struggle with, such as IBS, vulvodynia, TMJ, migraines, etc. Thus, we must learn techniques to calm and nurture our nervous system. You'll notice that our coping strategies focus far less on medications in this type of flare. This is all about how do we calm a nervous system down. No one is suggesting that this flare is a result of mental illness or it's all in your head. Rather, this is about recognizing the physical toll that stress can play on the human body and then working to reverse that damage. Okay, so what are the triggers for a stress-induced flare? Well, nervous system flare. Number one, stress. Number two, adverse childhood events. Number three, caffeine, which is neurostimulatory. Number four, chemical exposures, which tweak an already sensitive nervous system. And or I have to do is tell anybody with a bladder or bowel issue that they have to go somewhere where there's not a bathroom. I can guarantee you that's going to trigger a flare. So what are we going to do to rescue us out of this type of flare? Well, the first thing we have to do is some deep breathing. There are specific ways of deep breathing which actually reduce anxiety and reduce the parasympathetic nervous system's response to anxiety and the sympathetic nervous system's response. I got to look at that. I might have that backwards. So, an example is inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and breathe out for 8. That has been proven to physically calm your nervous system. Another thing we want to do is we want to take a walk. We got to get moving. Gentle exercise helps to release stress and improve circulation, which is always going to help a sensitive nervous system. You can try reflexercise, which is where you're standing, you curl your toes into the ground. You're not running away, you're actually anchoring yourself to the ground. Then you open your arms with your palms facing outward. Your head is up. Turn your head this way. Turn your head this way. Oh my God, my neck is so tight. I'm going to do that again. Turn your head this way. Turn your head this way. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths in, out, in, out, in, out. Another thing you can do is you can do the power pose. Stand like Superman. Head held high. Looking straight forward. Here, I got to back up. Stand like Superman. Head held high. It would help if I actually tied my pants, wouldn't it? Remind your body what it feels like to be in control. Amy Cuddy gave a fabulous TED Talk about how body posture influences your attitude, your brain, and your nervous system. Stand tall, legs spread, chin up with your arms on your hips, the Wonder Woman pose. Make yourself big and hold that position for 2 minutes. This position increases testosterone and courage while decreasing cortisol. It can help reverse adrenal fatigue and will increase your sense of confidence. Even if you don't feel powerful, fake it. Anytime you have to walk into a situation where you might feel powerless, do the power pose before then. Or you can do inversion, where you lay on the floor and put your legs up on the wall. This creates really good blood flow to your brain and your lymphatic system, which also reduces anxiety and depression. Hello, for anybody who just came in, I'm Jill from the IC Network. We're doing a quick IC support group meeting here on YouTube for an hour. Then we're going to switch over to Facebook. At 2 to 4 hours after a stress flare begins, what are we going to do? This is where we're going to do even better techniques. So I can hear many of you groaning, if not yelling, don't talk to me about mindfulness. How will this stop my flare? Mindfulness is physical therapy for the nervous system, and it focuses on healing the nervous system. It redirects your brain away from anxiety, stress, and pain by focusing on the present, specifically your senses. Research studies have shown that it can heal the brain from periods of chronic stress, trauma, and pain within 10 days. In contrast, 10 days of negative stress can change your brain for the worse. So, have you ever flown through a thunderstorm? I have. It's so beautiful because as you're looking out, you're looking down at the clouds. You see one light up here, and then another one lights up there, and then one lights up here, and it's this beautiful. It's just this beautiful show. Well, that's actually the way your brain functions. That when your brain is active, different parts of your brain light up and contribute to that good experience that you're having or that bad experience that you're having. What we want to do, though, from a pain standpoint, is if we can occupy portions of the brain with other things, they cannot then power into that pain response. So, as an example, Dr. Jason Kutch, who's a neuroscientist at USC, he developed pelvic pain when he was in graduate school because he was riding a bicycle very, very long distances to go to classes. Um, and at some point in time, he sustained a pretty big injury. And now today, he has chronic overlapping pain conditions like I do. I mean, he just has that more injured sensitive nervous system. And so he's this leading premier IC researcher, wonderful, wonderful guy. And I asked him, I said, dude, what do you do when you feel a flare coming on? What do you do when you feel your nervous system amping up? And his answer blew my mind. His answer was, I go to the beach and surf. I just go to the beach. And he explained because when you're on the board and surfing, your brain can't pay attention to anything else. Your brain is trying to keep you up on a surfboard. It is paying attention to the water. It is paying attention to the wind. It is paying attention to the spray of the salt on your face. It is planning the next wave. And that's the perfect example of how mindfulness can help reduce pain, is it gets your brain involved in other things. So this is the time to do things that are very distracting. Play a guitar or a musical instrument or a game. Do some puzzles. Like I do Wordles. I do backgammon. I play a lot of games at night. Turn a radio on and sing with your favorite song. Dance around, walk in your garden, dig, plant flowers, smell roses. That's what I was doing yesterday. I was in my garden for hours. Take a walk and focus on the sensation of the wind hitting your face. Or my other favorite, make some cookies and just pay attention to the joy of putting the ingredients together and measuring them and then mixing them and then putting them on the cookie sheet and then baking them. That's a perfect way of distracting your brain from a stress-induced flare. And the payoff for that is that you then get aromatherapy for hours because your home smells so good. I mean, my safe place, if I just feel like I need some comfort, is to make cinnamon rolls. And then I freeze them on gluten-free cinnamon rolls, I will say. But just having my home filled with a warm, comforting smell is remarkably soothing for my flares. We can do techniques like I Spy, where we're focusing on sensory information. And we will go through these in depth over on YouTube. We can do the bumblebee exercises. This is great. Alexandra Millspa, who is one of our top IC psychologist who works with pelvic pain, she taught the bumblebee. Inhale completely and then exhale and hum or make your lips buzz as long as possible. And so you go and then go. I know it's silly. Or we can do tapping. Tapping is a form of acupressure that turns off the stress response. It uses fingertip tapping at meridian points to balance energy by sending signals to the part of your brain that controls stress. It can and should be used when you are feeling anxious, stressed, or would like to address a specific issue. It has been studied with veterans struggling with PTSD, and within 1 month, those patients had significantly reduced their stress, and some no longer struggled with PTSD. And so with tapping, we want to identify an issue you want to work with. So let's just say I have bladder and pelvic pain. Then we want you to rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10. So I'm going to say, okay, right now it's a 4. Then you want to pick a phrase that you're going to say to yourself while you're doing tapping. So I'm just going to say, even though I have bladder pain, I'm a good person. And then we're going to go through a series of tapping exercises where at each meridian point, you're going to tap for 5 or 7 minutes. So let's do that. So we start first on the side of your hand. Okay, so we'll do this 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I have pain, but I'm a good person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I have bladder pain, but I'm a damn good person. And we're going to go above the eyebrows, like right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I have bladder pain, but you know what? It says nothing about me as a person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we're going to go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Then we're going to go under the eye, top of the cheeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we're going to go under the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we're going to go under the mouth. Then we're going to go just above the collarbone, both sides. Then we're going to do armpits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're going to do, to end it all, top of the head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I have pelvic pain, but I'm a good person. It says nothing about me. 1, 2. I mean, guys, these are techniques that have been studied extensively. And it's just about resetting your nervous system. That's all. Okay, if this flare persists, then we're going to maybe even start talking about some over-the-counter supplements or some medication. We might do palmitoyl ethanolamide, Peora, or Pelip, which acts to calm nerves. We have a 2019 study that showed that patients had a significant and progressive reduction in pain intensity with improvements in frequency and bladder capacity. PEA has also been found to help with vulvodynia, fibromyalgia, chronic prostatitis, chronic pelvic pain, and most recently, menstrual cramps. This is where an antidepressant might be useful. A low-dose antidepressant acts to calm the central nervous system. You shouldn't be offended if somebody says, "Hey, have you tried an antidepressant?" They're not saying, "Hey, depression is causing this." What they're trying to do is structurally calm the central nervous system down. Cymbalta, Neurontin, and Lyrica are medications that are options, but they come with a host of pretty significant risks and side effects. That's why we want you to do the easy stuff first, because listen, if tapping will calm your nervous system down, then you won't have to experience the side effects of some of these stronger medications. The next type of flare we have is a menstrual flare. It's quite normal for women to struggle with flares throughout the day as they ovulate just as well as a day or two before their period. I figured this out after doing a pain diary for a couple of months, and it showed me that these flares were predictable and usually quite short term. But women can respond differently based upon their age and other health conditions. So in this group, so you can, if you have endometriosis, that can trigger far more intensive cramping and pain during periods. If you've got estrogen after, or if you're perimenopausal, what's going to happen is your periods are going to become more frequent. They might go from every 28 days to every 2 days. And instead of 5-day flows, they're like 3-day gushers with really, really strong cramping. That's what I had, at least. And so we certainly know that that changes in hormones have the potential of triggering icy flares. And so what are we gonna do for this? We're gonna do a combination of techniques. We're gonna do bladder wall techniques, but we're also gonna do pelvic floor heat techniques. So we're gonna do heat, we're gonna do some gentle massage, analgesics, PEA, CBD, walking and stretching. And then, of course, we have a sex flare. Sex flares happen, are very, very predictable, very, very common. And sex flares are generally driven by very, very tight pelvic floor muscles. So I have a whole section in this new guide that gives tips on how to make sex more comfortable so that it won't trigger flares, and then what we can do for that. Um, I am going to do a traveling flare, a plane flight flare versus a car flare. Those are the additions. But I want to hear if anybody else has any other opinions on what other types of flares I should cover, because there are undoubtedly more. Ah, my hair is a beast these days. So anyway, I hope that I will have this finished this week. We will cross our fingers. Let's see. So I've got that. I've got that. I've got that. Okay, here is my traveling and driving flare. So if you tend to flare when you're traveling, that's very common. It's the vibration of the car and the wheels or the tracks or the plane jarring your pelvis. This can trigger both pelvic floor flares and bladder wall flares. Tip number one for traveling, especially if you're driving, is to have a car with a very, very, very smooth suspension. And soft, comfortable seats. So doing a little car with hard leather seats, guaranteed to probably trigger an IC flare. But if you go for a bigger SUV, a sedan, um, like a Buick, even though Buicks aren't cool, but I drive a Nissan. The Nissan's pretty good for vibration. Uh, that's the best way to make sure that that bouncy road is not going to trigger an IC flare. Train rides, one of my worst flares traveling was on a train. I ended up at the emergency room at the other end. I didn't realize that trains do a lot of up and down, up and down, up and down. You always want to make sure you get into a business or first class car when you're riding on a train. This is where using a bladder friendly chair cushion can be really, really helpful, especially if it's a train that has a hard seat. We have those cushions in the IC Network shop. We have travel johns, little packets that you can carry with you if you do not have access to a restroom. You can pull over, open the front door, open the back door, and use a travel john and just pee on the side of the road and nobody will know it's there. I have always carried travel johns in my car. I will tell you, I have never had to use them, but it's a tremendous comfort to know that they're there just in case. Another thing you could do is just bring a big garbage bag, put a towel in it, sit on the garbage bag, pee into the towel, just seal it up at the end, and there you go. You've got a quick and easy way of peeing. And of course, using a heating pad when you're traveling, like our body heating pad. Oh, there goes my tonsil. Hold on. So anyway, there's more. There's more. But I think I will stop there. So again, to just kind of reiterate what when I started this meeting, um, I let go of one of my internets. I let go of Comcast because I was paying them almost $300 a month, and it was down half of the time. And I just got angry and said, "I'm not paying you any more money." So I'm down to one internet, and you really cannot live stream to two locations on one internet. It gets very, very slow and it doesn't look good. And so I have to figure out what I'm going to do. I might be tempted to do a YouTube meeting on one day and then a Facebook meeting on another day. And then I want to start doing them on Instagram. So stay tuned. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to proceed with that. And I always welcome anybody's feedback on this. So Anyway, okay, I'm going to stop it here. And for the main meeting where we will go into stuff in depth, if you want to come on over to Facebook, we're on the Facebook Interstitial Cystitis Network website. I will see you over there on the other side. Sorry for the confusion. It is what it is.